In the middle of an epic battle in a forest clearing, battle-maid Grace drops out of the sky with a battle axe to blast Monster Hide into shockwaves, right as Kirishima Kagehisa spawns in a glowing golden magic circle next to a mob of adventurers to announce his grand protagonist debut. Smash cut to the actual reality of his situation. Drowning in the pitch-black ocean depths, sinking aimlessly, gasping for air as his life flashes before his eyes, descending into the dark abyss. With blank eyes, suspended in a bright white circular void, he remembers his real life as a sweatlord gamer hooked on Break Force Online, lying in his bedroom until an IRL thief unexpectedly stabbed his torso. Floating through a gray void of empty dark space, two glowing circles appear, followed by a blinding flash and urgent screaming. Boom. He wakes up hyperventilating on the floor, on a paved path outside a stone town, with an anxious Grace hovering over him, while she desperately clasps her hands together. Still mentally lagging, he blinks at the high fantasy skyline, wondering if this is a VR event, plunging into internal existential dread before coming to the horrific realization that he has been reincarnated into the younger body of a noble runt named Theodore Gartner with stubby little legs. After reassuring Grace he isn't brain damaged, he realizes this ultra-loyal maid is his only viable party member in a toxic household. But as they march toward the Gartner estate, his abusive half-brother with a bowl-cut hairstyle insultingly confronts them, trash-talking his lineage alongside another smug sibling. Recalling how his own mother died of a disease, Theodore endures their arrogant chatter, while Grace gives them a cold glare. The side-part sibling mocks his weak stats, prompting the bowl-cut psycho to step up, while Grace bravely shields him. Bowl-cut throws a violent downward punch, but Theodore steps in front and instacasts a wind spell, Air Wall, that launches the bully backward. Left hyperventilating on the floor, the bowl-cut brother freaks out over the chantless magic while staring at Theodore in pure terror. Theodore notes his body responds with zero latency, like his old avatar, as the defeated bully snarls in frustration. Coldly flexing his superior logic, Theodore points an authoritative finger and tells the fleeing loser he's done playing nice, before leaving him to glare in defeat. Walking away without looking back, Theodore ignores Grace's worried look and resolves to treat this new world like the ultimate survival game. Cut to the grounds of the Gartner estate, where Theodore is soaking in the Isekai vibes under an expansive sky. He clenches his fist, feeling the fabric of his uniform, and looks out at the rugged countryside before declaring he's quitting this toxic household for good. Grace's eyes go wide with surprise, but Theodore just gives her a confident, I'm OP smile as birds flutter around them. He eyes the distant Gartner town through a wooden doorframe and asks Grace if she's down to be free. She pledges her unwavering devotion, saying she'll follow him anywhere because of her loyalty to his late mother. Later, Theodore is chilling in a chair, feeling pensive on a sofa, and Grace starts apologizing for failing to protect him and thanks him for the forgiveness. Theodore just tells her that his father actually agreed to let her leave, right as he has these dark, edgy flashes of family abuse that make him never want to see them again. He just wants a quiet life. So they hop into a horse-drawn carriage and hire the Forest Bird Mercenary Squad for protection. Inside the carriage, Theodore gives her the I trust you line, and Grace beams with a huge, cheerful smile. She takes charge of the trip to Tamwills, but Theodore is already annoyed and tells her to stop calling him young master. Grace keeps pace with the horses, and when Theodore asks why she wants to go to Tamwills, she just says it's funny. Then she gets serious, explaining that Tamwills is the place for high-level magic. Theodore mutters about hating his family and asks why she's following him into a dangerous zone. She places a hand over her heart, vowing absolute loyalty and begging to stay by his side. Theodore's thinking ahead to Tamwills, a massive urban labyrinth that apparently reshapes itself during the full moon. He realizes it's the same labyrinth from the BFO game, envisioning himself fighting shadowy monsters on a stone platform. Back in reality, he's wearing combat armor and is absolutely floored when Grace reveals she carries a massive ornate battle axe as a replica. He notices the ring on her finger. Remembering it seals her insane Dampier strength. He realizes he's the only one with the admin permissions to release that seal, though he's still not sure what his own power limits are. Inside the rocking carriage, Grace humbly admits she's a magic casual, staring in awe as Theodore's floating spell circle radiates high-tier energy. She asks if high-level magic circles are tough to cast, but Theodore shrugs it off, explaining his BFO muscle memory auto-completes the spellcasting. He shifts in his seat, and bam! A sudden collision violently flips the carriage, slamming everyone into the walls. Grace panics, while Theodore bursts through the splintered doorway to find the transport wrecked on the dusty road, and the horse rearing in terror. Landing firmly on his boots, Theodore instantly channels his mana to cast the Class 4 spell Live Detection on the dirt road. The hired cloak girl stands mouth agape at his absurdly high-level UI spell as Theodore's magical radar scans the surrounding terrain. His vision reveals an incoming horde of insectoid monsters mixed with predatory wolves and killer ants charging their location. He barks out the mob composition to the forest bird party, confirming wolves are in the aggro trace as the hooded girl gasps and Meat Shield 1 in plate armor panics to retreat. Seeing the swarm closing in, Theodore decides to unseal his maid's broken stats as Grace gives him the green light. Theodore grabs her in a clutch embrace, shouts, "Cancel seal!" and unleashes a massive, luminous shockwave just as the 1,000-strong mob slams into the road. Holding the line with the party, Grace pauses for a split second before launching into the sky like a missile and cratering the horde's center with her axes. Theodore watches in awe as Grace grips her catalyst. Amidst the rising dust cloud, he screams, "Hell comes!" unleashing a violent upward magic detonation that vaporizes the mob. Stabilized by a glowing magic seal, she fires a secondary shockwave that cracks the carapaces of the remaining killer ants and sends debris flying everywhere. Theodore jumps into the DPS rotation, shouting, "Tusk of Earth!" to impale goblins on jagged stone spikes. Grace surveys the total carnage over a road littered with dead mobs as a fresh wave snarls. Standing her ground, Grace fires off a screen-clearing AoE shockwave that launches the front line skyward. Meat Shield number 1 slices an ant while the freckled scout spots a flank attack and warns Monica, who instantly pierces an insectoid with her spear. Theodore analyzes their martial arts mechanics, noting that this world enforces strict skill tree requirements. As the smoke clears over a massive crater, Theodore checks Grace's abrasions and stands over the defeated battlefield, declaring the fight finished to a slumped adventurer. Grace thanks him, and when Theodore takes her hand, she blushes furiously and turns away. He turns toward her, asking if she's unhurt, and she stammers that she's fine, relieving him. He turns to the party to order a camp setup, brushing off the freckled scout's impatient complaints with a firm command to rest. As the party gathers, Theodore looks out, accepting this brutal reality isn't just a VR MMO. While Grace strikes a cinematic pose atop a cliff with her axe held high, as the real adventure begins. Deep in the forest wilds of Shern, Theodore broods over a hooded girl on the tree line, his mind replaying her solo trek while mentally complaining about Grace abandoning his party. He grumbles about her ring seal buff wearing off in high-level mob territory, right before hooded girl face plants hard into the dirt, gasping in full panic mode under her hood. Theodore picks up her dropped cloak in total confusion, only to smash cut to the river where a blonde chick screams. Alongside 2 other naked bathers, Theodore freezes in shock, watching the blonde cover up before dropping into a 90-degree grovel on the soft grass next to a horse carriage to apologize for the accidental creep behavior. Whip pan to Shern Castle's massive stone gate as our party rolls up alongside a freckled loot mule holding massive sacks for guild exchange, while Theodore decides to shop for staff upgrades with maid-uniformed Grace in tow. Walking down the cobblestone streets under noisy rooftops, Grace stares blankly as Theodore screams a frantic apology about the Morning River incident, which Grace hand-waves before making him realize he's being dramatic, since they used to take baths together as naked pixelated kids anyway. Cut to the town square, where the local NPC guard captain throws a massive rage fit over their quest turn-in, screaming that nobody could wipe out that monster swarm, while two visored edgelords smirk and explain this tyrant captain is just salty over losing his reward cash. The mad captain escorts the edgelords away, barking orders, leaving Theodore standing there recalculating this city's terrible corruption stats. Inside the packed Adventurers Guild lobby, the scene shifts to a quiet VIP room with a steaming teacup, where the narrator introduces Beline, the local guild receptionist, who immediately drops to her knees in an apologetic bow. She formally begs forgiveness from Theodore and Grace for the guard captain's toxic behavior, to which Theodore nonchalantly accepts while envisioning a conceptual image of the town's utterly lazy, useless security team. Sip of tea in hand, Theodore hits her with some sharp logic, asking why a glorified security guard is sticking his nose into autonomous guild business. Beline morphs into a deadpan chibi form holding a beer mug to explain that adventurers are hated here, and the guards only excel at sitting around taverns, leading Theodore to chibi nod along as he realizes the guards are just desperately trying to cover up their own failed quest logs. Beline frowns, revealing that the corrupt guard captain threatened Theodore just to protect his own skin, and offers extra bonus cash on top of the ant-slaying reward to buy their silence. Suddenly, a guy with dark hair and glasses enters the room, bowing politely to apologize for interrupting their meeting. He whispers a secret message to Beline, while Theodore watches curiously, causing her formal demeanor to instantly break into a mischievous grin. She winks and delivers the quest prompt. Baroness Ashley Lodius Shern wants an audience with Theodore. Theodore gives her an absolute deadpan stone face, openly refusing the noble summons because he hates corrupt middle management and knows she hired the worthless guard captain. Beline clasps her hands and begs to tag along, since the gatekeepers always block her from seeing the Baroness. So Theodore nods, accepting her pitch that it's best to meet the local ruler at least once. Cue the high-class setting as ornate white heels clink against the castle's polished tiles, where Theodore, Grace, and Beline stand in a formal line as the young ruler turns around. Lady Ashley greets them with a gentle smile, introducing herself as the local feudal leader. Theodore looks slightly surprised before maintaining his cool, offering a polite nod and introducing himself as Theodore Gartner. Ashley takes her seat, humbly apologizing for her guard captain's atrocious power trip and thanking them for clearing the monsters. Sitting on the opposite couch, Theodore accepts the apology, but immediately drops some unsolicited political advice, telling her she needs to fix her broken relationship with the guild. Ashley tilts her head in total confusion, admitting she had no idea there was even a rift in the first place. Beline leans forward, asking what her inner circle has been feeding her, while Theodore points out that Beline has been repeatedly turned away at her front door. Beline modestly waves it off, but Ashley's expression darkens as the horrific realization sets in. Looking down with an ashamed sigh, Ashley confesses that her deceased family, along with her head butler, Kennel, and the guard captain, always brainwashed her into believing adventurers were filthy thugs. Beline asks if they can grill this Kennel guy right now, but Ashley reveals her head butler is conveniently away on business in the neighboring town. An awkward, heavy silence fills the air before turning into a light-hearted pause, prompting Beline to eagerly raise a finger and offer a full presentation on how the guild actually functions. Ashley's eyes light up like a starry-eyed kid, hyped for the explanation, though Theodore ruins the cute vibe by bluntly stating both factions just want to exploit each other for profit, making Beline sweat, while Ashley enthusiastically agrees anyway. Beline pops out to gather documents and prepare Theodore's bounty pay, shutting the heavy wooden door behind her. Grace steps up to serve tea to the noble, introducing herself, and Ashley gives her a warm, welcoming smile. Grace closes her eyes with serene maid devotion, visibly relieved that the Baroness isn't holding a grudge over previous events. Theodore tells Ashley to relax, and she marvels at how weirdly mature and independent he is for his age, which he attributes to his hyper-optimized survival lifestyle. Scanning her with his battle mage eyes, Theodore analyzes her pale complexion and points out her obviously terrible health bar. Ashley blushes, sheepishly insisting she's fine, even though her internal monologue flashes back to a dark void of chronic frailty. Theodore decides it's time for some direct intervention, kneeling before her and grabbing her hand with a calm instruction to stay still. He channels his internal mana, explaining that his battle mage build lets him manipulate energy flow via circulation tempering, as glowing spirals of magic visualize around her arm, detailing how it acts like a high-tier status-buffing self-augmentation skill. He focuses the energy directly into her system to clear her debuffs, sending crystalline sparks of light through her skin. Theodore stands back up, and Ashley gasps as her body suddenly feels weightless, asking if that was actual magic, before Theodore clarifies it's just advanced energy adjustment. He adds that she actually possesses top-tier magic talent, shocking the young noble, as he advises her to study magic to control her own dense mana pools. Beline bursts back in with a tray of refreshments, apologizing for the wait, bringing everyone back together in the center of the hall as the meeting resumes under vastly upgraded, cozy vibes. Wrapping up their meeting, Grace clicks her heels against the polished floor and leads the way into the castle hallway, with Theodore right behind her, as she asks if Ashley's sickly nature reminded him of his late loved one, Lisa, prompting a somber sigh from our hero before they head toward a commotion. Out in the reception corridor, the missing head butler, Keneldono, is throwing a massive, screaming temper tantrum at a guild staff member, raging that Ashley shouldn't be in such a dirty place. Theodore steps right up to the angry old man's back, causing Kennel to spin around with extreme anime speed lines and yell at him for interrupting. After an annoyed sigh, Kennel calms down enough to stand stiffly, allowing Theodore to calmly introduce himself, Grace, and Beline as the ones behind today's chaos. Theodore moves the party into a private office, requesting a civil sit-down regarding Ashley's situation, where he delivers a massive lore dump while Beline listens intently. Exhausted by the truth, Kennel slumps into his chair, cursing the corrupt guard captain before casting a suspicious glance at Beline. Theodore uses his analytical negotiation skills to vouch for Beline's methodical nature, while asking about the town's past trauma with adventurers, to which Beline gives a knowing smirk about a prior incident. That leaves Kennel staring into space with heavy concern. Theodore pulls zero punches, sternly warning them that monsters won't wait for administrative paperwork, and that their garbage security forces will cause massive civilian casualties if they don't act fast. Kennel sighs, revealing Ashley's tragic background as a frail child whose estate duties had to be outsourced, lamenting that everything went downhill after Elliot Sama vanished. Theodore tilts his head, asking who Elliot is, triggering a flashback visualization of an empty bed and a tragic shipwreck. As Kennel explains, Elliot was Ashley's older brother who vanished at sea 8 years ago during a family tragedy. Theodore rubs his chin, feeling genuine pity for the isolated young girl. Suddenly, the doors slam open, and Ashley comes sprinting down the hall in her frilly dress, yelling for her grandpa. Kennel's face turns into a comedic shock meme at the sight of his sickly lady running, screaming in total panic before she slides to a stop right in front of him. She tackles the old butler in a tight hug, exclaiming how amazing her body feels thanks to Theodore's magic, leaving Kennel wide-eyed and dumbfounded. Theodore modestly warns that the buff is only temporary, but Kennel practically bows to the floor, overflowing with gratitude for seeing his lady healthy for once. Right then, a reddish-brown-haired lady shouts out a cheerful greeting to Theodore. Moving to the main castle hall, Monica asks if they're moving out, but a short-haired girl explains their gear maintenance got delayed by killer ant damage. Monica double-checks the ant damage, and the girl confirms the Smiths won't finish until tomorrow, meaning they need lodging. Red-haired lady impulsively offers her house for a sleepover, while Grace hits her with a deadpan glare. And when Theodore awkwardly tries to decline the free real estate, Kennel gets a giant floating question mark over his head. Theodore quietly explains that Ashley's emotional trauma stems from losing her entire family 8 years ago, leaving Ashley looking down in quiet, subdued sadness. Kennel rests his chin on his hand, touched by Theodore's empathy. As he notes her tragic past naturally makes anyone want to protect her, Kennel officially backs the sleepover invite. And despite Grace reminding them of their early departure, he insists they stay. Beline then nervously approaches Theodore, right as Ashley musters her courage and asks Theodore to officially be her friend. Theodore blinks in absolute shock, falling into a dramatic internal monologue before dropping a rare, genuine smile and accepting her request. They lock hands in a wholesome handshake, relieving the young noble, while Beline approaches a grumpy Kennel who complains about her ruining his wholesome moment. Walking down the hall, Beline lays out a brilliant bureaucratic fix, pointing out that Kennel's double duty as butler and administrator caused the guard oversight, leaning in to pitch a deal. While Kennel looks utterly drained by her relentless political maneuvering, Beline presents her proposal, while Ashley and Grace watch quietly from the side. Beline pitches it as a win for Ashley's future, finally forcing Kennel to give a defeated nod of agreement, as he promises to discuss the administrative shift with Ashley. Beline gives a teasing wink, promising to handle the behind-the-scenes scheming, leaving Kennel to let out a massive, soul-crushing sigh. Grace tries to steer the party back to finding a standard inn, but Kennel insists the entire party stay at the estate, prompting Beline to hype up the party and Theodore to ask what secret deal she just struck. Beline gives a smug, mysterious smile, leaving Theodore utterly confused, as she hums a song, boasting that while she schemes from the shadows, her alignment is strictly non-evil. Departing through the heavy courtyard gates, Beline hums a carefree tune, claiming her backdoor schemes are strictly chaotic good. Standing among his guildmates, Theodore reflects on securing his first official friend in this bizarre fantasy world as the squad gathers before the massive iron gates. High above, Ashley gazes down from a stone window frame, watching them go with deep longing. Cut to the party riding out in a horse-drawn wagon, wheels clattering on the dirt path through a brutal mountain pass, flanked by sheer cliffs, with Ashley's voice echoing a hopeful farewell in Theodore's head. Suddenly, a flashbang-level eruption of white light detonates across the road. The rocky cliffs get swallowed in a blinding, hyper-glowing fog. As the horizon clears, the entire adventurer party starts losing their minds in awe. Beline rushes to the plateau edge, pointing frantically into the valley below for Theo and Grace to look. Theodore and Grace step up side by side, their stoic gamer faces completely shattered by the render distance, with Grace admitting the view is breathtaking. Nestled in a colossal crater below sits a gargantuan ring-walled megacity, centered around a massive spire that pierces the sky, the legendary labyrinth city of Termules. Starting their journey in the colossal crater of Termules Our squad looks up at the needle-like spires of Boundary City piercing the bright sky. Below, a high-angle view reveals massive defensive gates integrated into towering stone walls where a steady stream of figures marches in. At the checkpoint, some random ponytail guy on horseback presents his credentials to a spear-wielding guard, while a light-haired girl peeks around a stone wall, her mouth parting in utter wonder at this gatekeeper-restricted grandeur. Passing through the gates, Theodore Gartner, wearing his classic stoic gamer face, freaks out under his collar about the vibrant streets, shouting that it's exciting as he looks at the gothic skyline of spires. He spots a local furry wolfman gesturing wildly in the market and realizes these aren't NPCs or avatars. They are actual living people, which makes the blonde girl beam with pure wonder. Later, along a paved European-style street next to a horse-drawn carriage, Theodore drops a massive sack of gold into Monica's hands with a smooth pay-to-win flex, keeping his military uniform composed while explaining he's buying future favors. Theodore explains he'll contact their forest bird guild if needed. Their reddish-brown-haired companion smiles warmly next to a poised Grace, while the brown-haired woman talks about staying in the city, prompting Grace to fold her hands and pray they don't get obliterated in the deeper floors of the labyrinth. The wavy-haired woman with a cape asks their next move, and Theodore explains they must deliver letters to someone named Rosetta. Monica waves a cheerful goodbye, telling them to be careful. Theodore waves back, and the carriage clatters away toward the spires. Soon, Theodore and Grace arrive at a grand two-story European mansion. Theodore stands resolute at the entryway and slams the heavy door knocker, which is answered by Rosetta, a poised woman in an elegant dress, whom Theodore asks if this is Rosetta's mansion. She immediately recognizes them as Theodore, son of Henry, and Grace. A bewildered Theodore asks if they've met before, trying to search his memories, while having a rapid flashback of three cloaked figures walking through a wasteland. Rosetta mentions she heard about Grace through Lisa's letters, making Grace's eyes widen in absolute shock. Realizing this woman is a high-tier trusted contact of his mother, Theodore hands over his father's letter. Rosetta verifies the Count's ink script and invites them inside to her fancy living room. Theodore immediately asks what the letter says, and Rosetta explains it's a request to help him live in the city and enroll in Pursford Academy. But instead of accepting a cozy free ride, Theodore demands to find his own house because he refuses to remain under his family's protection and wants to solo level as much as possible. Rosetta looks mildly concerned, while Theodore maintains his deadpan face and closes his eyes in deep gamer reflection. Surprisingly, she yields to his wish, which utterly perplexes Theodore as he tilts his head. With Grace standing right behind him, Rosetta points out that even if she refused, he'd just run off to do it anyway. Theodore's eyes sharpen with the intensity of a hardcore speedrunner, vowing to figure it out himself. Rosetta smiles at his stubborn gaze, and as Theodore hesitates, she admits she'd rather guide him than let him run wild. Theodore nods firmly in agreement. Rosetta closes her eyes, sighing that she couldn't face Lisa if he died, prompting Theodore to realize she knew his mother. She chuckles, explaining she went to school with his parents and even dungeoned with Lisa in the labyrinth. This bombshell info makes Grace break into a cold sweat of pure shock. Rosetta offers them her couch for the night, but Grace just narrows her eyes in deep, silent suspicion. As Rosetta sits back, completely composed, Theodore watches her serene, mysterious smile, wondering what kind of high-level player she really is. Bright and early, inside a real estate office, Theo and Grace stand before a brick wall plastered with property listings. The agent, Kyson Mortis, pitches options, while Theo internally narrates their search for an operational base camp. Whip pan to the paved streets until they pull up to a 2-story stone house with a pointed roof. The contract gets signed, and it's instant speedrun cleaning time. Grace dusts furniture while Theo suffers under a massive carpet roll. Next stop, the menacing Gothic facade of Pursford Academy. Theo narrates finishing his paperwork inside at a counter marked with official signage. The receptionist Haza gives a welcoming smile, beaming cheerfully, though she gives the intro letter a hilarious look of mild skepticism as Theo registers with the Adventurers Guild. She hands back the official paperwork, Theo signs off, and Haza presents a floating magic stone ID. She points across the hall, warning that entering the Great Labyrinth requires mandatory tutorial training, promising alchemist info afterward. The duo drop quick thanks and walk off. Navigating the massive open guild hall. Out on the street, a bob-cut woman watches a squad of sketchy mercenaries centered around a bald, scarred meathead who throws her a sideways glance before his crew marches off, leaving the woman sharing solemn looks with her party. Theo and Grace head straight to Beatrix the Alchemist's shop, handing over the guild letter to order a self-defense minion. Beatrix casually reviews the request for a high-quality shadow mercury. Theo slices his arm to drip blood into a flask, and when Beatrix demands 1,500 Keelig cash, he coughs up the gold as Beatrix flashes 3 fingers for a 3-day crafting timer. Back on the street under the spires, Theo calls it a day, smiling to Grace that tomorrow they raid the labyrinth with Rosetta, so it's time to rest. Grace agrees as a carriage clatters past, but Theo's spider sense tingles as he spots the same scarred thugs lurking in the shadows, casting a dark vibe over the Gothic towers. Later that evening, Theodore stands by his new home's window, peeking out as the sun sets over the city. The next morning reveals quiet rooftops under a soft sky as Theodore gears up in his stone-walled room before he and Grace return to the guild, passing under its wing emblem sign. Waiting at the counter is Rosetta, wearing her trademark enigmatic smile next to Haza. Theodore approaches with a polite nod and announces his departure to the labyrinth, prompting Haza to ask for his metal registration plate. He flashes his ID, earning an amused look from Rosetta, who offers a gentle warning to be careful. Not one to walk blindly into a dungeon, Theodore immediately stops at a commercial stall to buy a detailed labyrinth chart. Rosetta notices his map purchase, and Theodore explains he wants to prep properly since she's tagging along. Curious about his new companion's day job, Theodore asks what she does for work. Rosetta reveals she teaches at Pursford Academy, specifically running the healing magic classes. Theodore reacts with a knowing, "So that's how it is," prompting a puzzled look from Rosetta. He breaks down the game-like logic. Healing depends heavily on magical power compatibility, and since high-tier healers are incredibly rare, the Academy definitely lets her set her own flexible schedule. Soon, the trio arrives at the grand Gothic-style Boundary Labyrinth Gate Shrine. They ascend the massive stone staircase, entering a hall dominated by a towering, ethereal statue of the deity. Theodore leads them past massive columns and up a stone spiral staircase, casually asking which god is worshipped here. Rosetta explains it is Shuas, the moon goddess, who protects travelers. She drifts into a blissful, reverent state, while Grace looks utterly confused, and Theodore remains entirely deadpan. Reaching the transport room, Theodore presses a button on a rectangular transport stone, watching it hum with magic. He touches the monolith, explaining it can warp players to any floor they've previously visited. He sighs, wishing his past BFO gamer memory counted toward unlocking fast travel, but sadly realizes he has to start from level 1, looking small against the massive architecture. Suddenly, the mood darkens as the bald, scar-faced head PKer and his goons enter the room. Theodore watches their threatening silhouettes pass by as the bald leader smirks, sparking the stone with magic. As the monolith glows, Rosetta whispers a warning about the sketchy crew, hoping it is just her own paranoia. Theodore touches his chin, his veteran gamer instincts screaming as he recalls the dreaded beginner hunts from his BFO days. He knows all too well that low-level floors in any MMO are absolute breeding grounds for toxic PKers. A worried Rosetta suggests turning back, but Theodore shakes his head, knowing that once you're marked as prey, running away does nothing to escape the aggro. Grace's eyes narrow as she prepares to protect her master, and Theodore's face turns ice cold as he delivers the ultimate gamer response. If they block their path, they will simply have to delete them from the server. Transitioning into the damp, claustrophobic stone corridors of the lower levels, Theodore summoned a small floating orb of magical light that hummed quietly in the darkness. Guided by this glowing illumination, our wavy red-haired big sister took the lead, while Theodore and Grace followed close behind. Theodore casually declared their speedrun goals, saying, "All right then, let's go. I think we should be able to go until the 5th floor today," as they ventured deeper into the underground complex. The lower depths were completely deserted, filled only by the ominous whistling of wind echoing through the dark tunnels. Grace crouched low in the foreground, glancing back at her companions to gauge their resolve before murmuring, "But still, we'll look at how we fare." Suddenly breaking the silence, Grace leaped into the air and slammed her massive weapon down with pulverizing force, shattering the stone floor and sending a pack of lurking goblin-like creatures reeling from the explosive impact. With the trash mobs cleared, the trio walked side by side once more, their footsteps ringing against the damp walls. Big Sister mused thoughtfully at their efficiency as their figures shrank into the distance of the dimly lit hallway. Pausing in a particularly dark stretch, she turned to the youth and asked, "You were suspicious of that group from before, right from the start, right?" When Theodore deadpanned a simple yes, prompting her to admit her previous doubts about his map purchase and ask if his extreme caution was the real reason for his preparedness. Theodore looked back over his shoulder with a calm, analytical gaze and explained, "That's also one of the reasons." He pulled out the parchment map, gesturing for her to take a look. His finger traced the lines of stone corridors, pointing directly to 2 specific intersections. And the other reason is this. There are some places where those guys from before might lay an ambush for us, like here and here, he warned, focusing on a specific 3rd floor choke point. The main one will be on the 3rd floor. If we keep going in the same direction, after the stairs and the stone monument, there is a long hallway where it meets perpendicularly with another hallway. He detailed. Big Sister leaned in, her eyes narrowing as she instantly recognized the toxic map design, analyzing, "This is the most suspicious place. They can shoot us from afar with arrows. They might also put some men on standby in the small rooms just before and after this long hallway, thus preventing us from running away while allowing them to attack us from both sides." She looked at Theodore with newfound intrigue, wondering aloud what kind of hardcore veteran could have taught a kid such advanced survival strats. She puffed out her cheeks in a playful pout, huffing, "And here I thought of showing my cool side by saving you when you're in trouble, and then continue by giving you some advice like a real guardian. But now it seems that we'll meet some robber adventurers. And on top of it, both of you are really smart. There are just so many things that don't go along with my plan." Which made Grace ask if she was actually being serious right now. Meanwhile, Theodore's mind drifted back to his past life as Kagehisa in the brutal world of BFO, where such anti-griefer tactics were basic muscle memory. Prompting him further, Big Sister asked, "So then, what are you planning to do about that ambushing party?" Theodore pointed to the parchment map again, proposing, "Let's see, this will be a long detour, but if we take this route here, we might be able to flank their archers." He explained that the robbers naturally expected them to take the shortest route because they looked like fresh newcomers. "We can predict their movement to some extent by acting as if we are just beginners. And that's exactly why I did that," he said, with a cold, calculating look. His eyes grew stone cold as he finalized the strategy. If we find archers in that place, then there's almost 100% chance of them laying an ambush, and so we'll attack them without any warning. Big Sister rested her hand on her cheek, remarking, "For some reason, I feel sorry for them now." However, she clenched her fist as her guild authority kicked in, declaring, "After all, I'm in a position where I'll be scolded if I turn a blind eye on adventurers who work as robbers. This is not about seeing your ability anymore, so I'll join the battle. My weapons are my healing magic and hand-to-hand combat." Throwing them a reassuring smile, she added, "And also I can use the dark side of healing magic, so you don't need to worry." "That's it then, let's move on," she cheered, waving them forward, while Grace trailed behind, pale as a ghost, silently thinking, the dark side of healing magic, huh? That's gory. Whip pan to a yawning dark maw, where a distant pinprick of light guides the team down the detour route. Theodore slides his hand along the cold stone and peers around the corner, spotting cloaked mob mages featuring a skull staff leader. Clocking them as human night vision batteries for the snipers, he leaps into the open with the girls right behind him, yelling, "Blow away!" as a magical circle flares on his palm. He thrusts the light at the cowering mobs and fires an airburst shockwave that obliterates their positioning. A bandaged griefer flies through the air, clutching his chest and skidding through the dust, while the trio stands over the debris like hitmen. "Why come from behind?" the griefer shrieks, howling down the hall. "Hey, what was that sound?" before panic sets in. "It's that boy!" the PK leader roars. "Damn it, kill them!" while a lantern-wielding mage chants, "Flame absorb," making Theodore's spellcasting flicker. A bald robber tries to rush in, but a massive axe blade fills his field of vision. His eyes widen in absolute terror, right before Grace delivers a bone-shattering midsection strike, forcing out a wet gasp as he gets cratered into the stone wall while she looks on coldly. Meanwhile, Redhead calmly watches a runner and barely touches his shoulder, sending him screaming in pure agony. She predator tackles him, hauls him up by his collar, and transforms into a pitch-black shadow crackling with electric dark aura. Whispering, "Rotten blood," she boils the leader's internal organs until he vomits blood and hits the silent floor, standing over his barely twitching body as the dark energy dissipates. Another caster hurls a burn-down fireball, but Theodore's eyes glow like circuit boards. Too slow. His electro-lance electrocutes the leader, slamming him into the wall with sparks dancing on his skin. "Damn it! What the hell is going on here?" The fried leader screams, whipping out a dark artifact that ignites a huge magic circle while he brags about killing them all. Summoning gate? Theodore realizes, explaining to a confused Grace that it forces an unholy entity into reality. Redhead asks what's popping out, right as the leader laughs and the portal erupts into smoke, spawning a hairy, muscular torso. Redhead's smile turns dangerously sharp as she realizes these aren't basic low-level griefers. Boom! The smoke clears inside the dim hallway as an illegal boss monster drops in, prompting Redhead to scream, "A Manticore?" as the beast leaps forward with claws bared and its creepy humanoid face snarling for blood. The PK leader cackles like a villain who just pulled an S-rank card, shouting, "Kill them! Kill those guys!" right before the Manticore's scorpion tail stabs him through the spine mid-sentence. The party freezes in pure, hilarious confusion while the ganker wheezes. "Why? It hurts." And the Manticore chuckles, noting that they're both stuck cleaning up low-tier trash today. "This monster," Theodore mutters, while Redhead steps up to buy time, but the beast lunges, forcing Theodore to execute a frame-perfect dodge while erupting jagged ice spikes. Skidding back to open up spacing, he commands Ice Wall to erect a frozen barricade down the hall as the beast glares over the ridge and Grace screams out his name. "I'll start by eating you." The monster growls. I don't like this, Theodore thinks, calculating the field instantly. He realizes the dead griefers were just scrub proxies who couldn't control their own summon, and shifts his combat posture. Instantly deducing a shadow mastermind set up this whole encounter to wipe everyone out. Explosive speed engaged, Theodore lunges forward, locking eyes on the arrogant beast and thrusting his spear straight into the Manticore's smug human face. The beast's head snaps back in utter disbelief as Theodore lands gracefully. Staff ready. Eat me? Huh? Just try it if you think you can, he mocks, provoking the enraged monster to roar. You! What a rude boy you are!
The video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Like the video if you're ready for the next part.